Okay.
Right. Well, we are going live with Fran Strine. Hi, everybody. It's Jamie and my co host, Jeremy, and the
Okay.
wonderful Fran Strine. I am
How's it going?
so happy to have you here.
Anytime I get to spend time with you is the best day of my life. So I'm thrilled to
Aw.
be here. You
Well,
helped me so much. Yeah.
I am so proud of all the stuff you've been doing. I'm super excited to talk about it all. I want to start with like now is your current film doing anything at Tribeca? No.
No, we look,
Well,
we
you're
did our
out
world.
already, right? So,
Yeah. It's out June 7th. It just came out via Sony Pictures. But we were fortunate to have our world premiere in Switzerland at the Zurich Film Festival in the heat of the pandemic. And somehow the consulate in Switzerland arranged for Ray and I to get a special permission to travel during COVID.
oh
And it was
wow.
tricky, it was scary. And it was funny, he and I and like six other people were on this jumbo jet by ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah, and he stayed a few extra days to do some recording with Shania Twain, and I had to come home early to finish some work. On the flight back, I was the only person within first and business, and there may have been four people
Wow.
in coach, and it was surreal. I don't know, it was weird. It was kind of unsettling, to be honest with you, but
Did
Well,
you get to fly first? That's the most important question.
yes, I did. Thanks to our wonderful business partners. Yeah, they took care of us for sure.
Good.
well, I wanna kind of rewind a bit because I want everybody to kind of know where you come from. Now,
Sure.
I don't remember who told me about you, but I know somebody told me about you in the late 90s when I was looking for a photographer in
Yeah, I
Atlanta.
think.
Was it Tara?
Well, I've known Tara, but I think our connection came through another publicist also at Roadrunners, like Sophia or
Oh,
Sophie.
Sophie.
Sophie, yes. So
Yeah.
I had finagled my way into Jerry Miller's life, who was the late editor of Metal Edge magazine, and she just recently passed. But she kind of gave me my first shot, and somehow Sterling McFadden, which was the publisher for Metal Edge, screwed up and gave me her home address, and I sent my portfolio to her, and I've been rejected by everybody else in the industry. And she took one look at it and was like, "You live in Atlanta?" I'm like, "Yeah." And that benefited me because there's so many photographers in New York and LA trying to vie for a photo pass or an opportunity to get a photo session, which were even harder to get.
Yeah.
And I kind of cornered that market in Atlanta, man. I remember all the Roadrunner bands, Sepultura, Typo Negative, Machine Head, and she had like a deep love. I don't think they're a Roadrunner band, but for the band Slaughter. I probably photographed that band 400 times
Yeah,
because she
she
loved them
loved the
so
hair
much.
metal.
Yeah. Bon Jovi. Like, so through her, I inevitably met you because I think Sophie may have left Roadrunner and I got passed on to you. That's when I had my opportunity with Slipknot, which really launched my career.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just
And my
remember
first time, yeah,
Raina,
my first time. Yeah, Raina from
Cold Chamber.
Coal Chambers, just this little family owned photo studio in this town called Lilburn, Georgia, where I happen to live. And she didn't live too far away, but I remember they had like a sandbox and like some other props. So I was like, okay, you're going to put on this devil suit with these black wings. We're going to set you in the sand on a unicorn or whatever.
The
I forget what.
unicorn, right? That's what I remember. I
Yeah.
thought it was like a merry-go-round horse or something.
Yeah.
I'm
And she was
remembering
so
that.
cool. She was down for anything. I remember it made like a huge spread in the spin or something. But
AP.
AP, yeah. And I remember coming to New York for the very first time ever and coming to your offices and meeting you and Maria Gonzalez. And I'd never been to New York before. And I was just like a fish out. I remember Michelle Kerr was there too, because it was during this big convention they had at the Roseland Ballroom, right?
Yeah.
The something convention, like all the radio conglomerates come together, I guess.
Oh,
But I remember
yeah.
Bruce Dickinson was there, Peter Steele was there,
Peter.
Megadeth, all the yeah, I did a lot of. But I remember Michelle Curley. You sound a lot like Elvis. Where are you from? You know, I was like, I'm from Georgia. This is my first time ever being in New York before, so it was awesome. I had such a good time.
I think for people who are listening and who don't know exact, because you are a multi hyphenate talent. You do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Can you explain, for people who might not know, your repertoire, everything you do?
Yeah, I started off as just a photographer by accident. I never went to film school or photography school or anything. I took pictures for the genuine love of just having memories. I had no aspirations to be a professional photographer or filmmaker, which I am now. But I would just sneak my camera into concerts, and over time, people were saying, "Man, you got a great eye, and your reflexes are great, and your instincts." And after a while, I started noticing, okay, maybe I do have something here. And that's when I sent out my portfolio to everybody, and mine snuck through through the radar to get into Jerry Miller's hands. And here I am today. It was just a stroke of luck, and that I got her home address, because otherwise it would have landed on somebody's desk at Sterling McFadden in New York and never seen the light of day. But she really gave me a shot. And then once I got into Roadrunner with Jamie and Maria and all the rest of the gang, they just loaded my plate with work, man. I'm forever grateful for that. Yeah.
So you do video too, and you do.
I do, yeah. So what happened was I got on my very first music tour, Tattoo the Earth, back in late '99, early 2000, and it was with Slipknot, Slayer, Sepultura, Seven Dust, and I was already friends with Seven Dust, so it was great. I'd already had a repertoire with Slipknot, right? And Mick Thompson and I were great friends, and we still are today.
Yeah.
So we just hung out every day. And that was my first tour. I was dying to get on a tour, and I didn't know how to get on one, And thankfully for my friends in Seven Dust, there's a gentleman named Scott Alderman whose creation this tour was. And through their booking agent, they got me his email address. And again, it was a cold call email. And I was just like, hey, I'm Fran. I'd love to show you my portfolio. I'd love to I'll do it for free. Just let me be on the tour, And to my surprise, he responded right away. He's like, send me your portfolio. That was it, his address. I sent it to him. And then he's like, can we have a phone call? And next thing you know, he wouldn't give me any money. I took a Greyhound from Atlanta to Portland, Oregon. My ankles looked like eggplants. They were so swollen and red and purple, but and that was the launch of it, man. And then for the video portion, when I got back to Atlanta, Seven Dust, we're in the studio with a guy named Butch Walker, who's now a really famous producer.
Yeah, Butch.
Yeah, and they, the band welcomed me in, and I had a Sony Handycam with me that I brought on Tattoo the Earth with me, just for memories, just like I did my camera when I was younger, taking pictures. And then I thought, how cool, man, moving pictures. This is even more cool than a static image to me, because, you can paint a better picture and tell a better story. So I brought the video camera just filming, and their A&R guy was there. What's his name?
Sean Roberts.
He was sitting there. He looked at me right now. He goes, you do video production? I'm like, I sure do. I'd never even owned a computer before, nothing. And I was like, yeah, I do. And he's like, well, we're looking to do a making of DVD of Seven Dust.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he's like, can you get me a budget together? I'm like, I sure can. And then immediately called my best friend at the time, Jen Rothland, who's a really big music video producer in LA. And she put this insane budget together, because back then labels had money to spend. Submitted it, I got greenlit. So I went out, bought the top of the line equipment. I bought one of those egg-shaped IMAX. Remember those things?
Oh, yeah.
And loaded Final Cut 2, and bought Final Cut for Dummies, and that's how I learned how to edit.
Wow.
And the DVD that accompanied the CD became a smash hit. Everybody loved it. And the next thing I know, I'm doing tons of artist stuff. And
now
that's how the video part came into play.
Well, the thing is, this is kind of what I think is missing in young people today. Like the ability to say, I'm going to sacrifice for something I want, that it's not owed to me, but yet, I'm going to work hard for it. I'm going to forego payment and figure it out.
Yeah.
You don't see that these days.
No, that's the tough thing. It's like nothing was given to me. That's for sure. I worked my ass off
Right.
for every opportunity I got, and I think I crushed just about everything. Have I
You
screwed up gigs before? Yeah, but the big thing is gaining the trust of the artist and the people like Jamie and everybody else that have helped me through my career and just really do a great job and be cool on set and just deliver, and eventually your opportunity will come. And
Yeah, and I remember like with you, the artist liked you and requested you to come to do these
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Like
Yeah,
Three Doors Down loved you.
I still, you know what? I just saw Chris. Uh, I just saw Chris. What's his last name?
Henderson.
Uh, Chris Henderson. Yes, my girlfriend is a huge fan of Three Doors Down, and they were playing in
Ah,
Santa Barbara a few months ago during the COVID thing. And I sent him a text. I'm like, hey man, I see you guys are playing up my way. He goes, how many tickets and passes do you need? Just a couple, man. They put on a great show and got to see Chris for a bit. But yeah, man, I loved working with those guys. Slipknot would request me quite a bit for
mhm.
Guitar World and their
Yeah,
amp endorsements and Ibanez and stuff. And I remember going to Mick's place one time, Mick Thompson, that is.
yeah.
He just signed with Ibanez and got this new killer red guitar. They call it the Red Alert. And I remember flying to Iowa, man, and it was just like hundreds of miles of just cornfields. And we
I
land
remember
and
it well.
yeah. He picked me up at the airport and we went to his house and we built this set in his garage. It looked like, the invasion of Poland. There's like maps everywhere with drawings
Right.
and knives and hand grenades everywhere. And did the shoot. But yeah, so those were the fun times. And Jamie, I think, were you there for the Duality video shoot?
No, I sent Maria
Okay, that's right. Yeah, so that's when my son came with me, Zach, who was at the
because I
time
was like,
13.
I am not going back to Iowa. I went once. That's it. Sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
fascinated. I have to say, I'm fascinated by editing because
yeah,
I worked in TV, and one thing I learned is the best directors, Spielberg, Scorsese, they're fascinated with reality television. They
right.
can't get enough. And I said, why? That sounds ridiculous. It's the editing. It's finding a story in hours of footage.
Yeah.
And so, what's your process?
My process when I got off the road with Five Finger Death Punch, which was the camel that broke the straw's back for me touring. And if anybody knows anything about those guys, they'll completely understand. And
Yep.
it's so bad so that everybody's like, "Hey, what was the last tour you did? Five Finger Death Punch." And the next thing out of their mouth is, "Oof." Like, oh my God, I'm sorry for you. It was tough. So I knew right then I needed to find my way out. And I'd worked with a band called Stained for about 8 years consecutively. I was in the studio with them from the songwriting process to recording, mixing, touring, everything for a bunch of years. And that's where I really cut my teeth in storytelling in these documentaries or whatnot. Because we did another making of, and it was a really sad time in the band's history because they lost John Wasaki from the band. They fired him for different reasons, but it was a really compelling story, and I could see it every time I go in the studio. I'm like, man, this is going to be kind of.
So, do you see that? When you're on set or you're shooting,
Yeah,
do you see it instantly? Like, can you recognize? Okay, that's my story.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, once you really get it, because look, I don't think it's a secret that the guys in Stain don't see eye to eye with Aaron Lewis quite a bit, and he's probably one of the talented, most awesome songwriters and singers that I've ever worked with. But he's difficult to get along with, and it's not ego. It's just the way his personality rubs people. And you see it in the footage, and anybody can go watch it on YouTube. I think it's just called The Making of Stained. But, for instance, in Hired Gun, when I met Liberty DeVito from Billy Joel's band, I knew right away that he would be a main storyline. Same thing with Rudy Sarzo. A couple of, one person kind of inserted himself in against my own wishes, but there's nothing I could do about that. But we made the best film that I figured we could make, and it was a success, and did wonders for me. But yeah, you can definitely, as you're hearing these stories back, especially within Liberty DeVito's and Rudy Sarzo's, like, wow, this is potent, and I think the audience will really connect with them, and they did. you know.
So how do you? I'm sorry, I'm geeking out now.
No, go ahead.
But how do you stay as a fly on the wall? Because it's not exactly, you know, shooting is a little intrusive. You know, like people are always conscious the camera's there. How do you like kind of disappear to get something really natural and genuine?
Well, that's the I learned that working with a few producers, because a lot of producers don't like cameras in the studio because I think it's a distraction. So that's exactly, you have to make yourself a fly on the wall. I just kind of sit back, you know, and I make sure I got a good zoom lens. So if I need to get a good tight shot on somebody's face that's reactionary, that I have it, and you know, just lay back. You know,
But I
I think
think
I've
it's
only
also people's comfort level with you, isn't it? You know?
yeah, for sure. When you know, like you know, Nickelback, Seether, Stained, Shinedown, whoever, you know, I have a really close relationship with those guys on and on, you know, professional and unprofessional. Like we still go to dinners, talk, or whatnot. But it's just being cool, and they know that you're not going to throw them under the bus or show something that maybe you shouldn't, that you even have, you know, because there's hours of footage that if it ever got out would be detrimental. so yeah, I keep that stuff. You know, you don't want to tarnish anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah.
So how do you if you get something that maybe shouldn't be on, like you just capture something, that must be awkward. Like how do you navigate that?
You know, it's funny you say that because I remember interviewing Richard Patrick from Filter for Hired Gun, and he saw the movie and sent me an email and was really pissed off at me because he thought I made him look shitty. In his words, I'm like, look, man, I was like, I didn't edit anything like out of context. This is exactly what you said. And the bass player, Phil Buckman, who's now in Filter, and he was the voice of Carl's Jr., you know, had a great career in that stuff. I'm sorry, my phone. He called me and he goes, man, you know, why did you do that? I'm like, well, I was like, and what Richard was saying was like, you know, I let my guys know up front, I'm not going to pay him shit. You're going to sleep on the bus. You're not going to get a hotel, but you're going to get to see the world and tour and, you know, make a living at least. So I told him, I was like, you know,
fully capable of throwing himself under the bus.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I actually ran into him in person one time too at some award show, and it was cool. It wasn't like fist fights. It was just another like, what did you do that?
He's just
I
a
was like, look,
super
man,
opinionated guy, so
yeah. And we still spar online every now and then, you know. But you know, to answer your question is, you know, I told him, I'm like, look, I was like, everything's there verbatim, nothing's out of context. I was like, to me, you're doing your guys a favor. You're forewarning them of what's ahead. You know, you're not promising them first class, you know, the Four Seasons or anything like that. You're telling them the truth, you know, and that's what came across on the film, you know, and Phil Buckman backed it up. You know, we didn't get paid shit. We do meet and greets. He gets all the money. We don't get anything, but he knew that prior to signing the contract, you know, so I felt comfortable putting that in the movie because
once it comes out of your mouth, it's fair game, right?
Yeah. So
is it editorial though, or is it promotional? Like, do you do both?
I do mostly. No. I'm not a great editor. I did not edit Hired Gun. Maybe a couple little scenes. Once I got all that, we interviewed 65 plus people for Hired Gun.
Wow.
Right.
Because I didn't know what I was doing. I would never do that now. But that was my first really big swing at making a big movie with some money behind it, and I got way more than I needed. And once I got in the edit bay, and if you worked into, you know, it's all, you know, the story's built in the edit bay, you know, your narrative, everything else, you're finding stuff and handoffs and other directions you go in. So that's the approach I took with Hired Gun, was going that, you know, there's a lot of vignettes in there, you know, it really follows Jason Hook, Liberty DeVito, and Rudy Sarzo. Then there's a lot of vignettes with Phil X, Richard Patrick,
Alice Cooper,
Rob Zombie, you know, so I tried to accommodate everybody.
And they know though, like going in, that they don't control this. Like this is
look, there's a couple of people when the movie came out, you know, I'm afraid to say his name because he's Sue happy, but I'll just tell you anyway because I don't have a non-disclosure with him. But Neil Sean from Journey, you know, I landed an interview with him, And this is when I lived in the Bay Area, and he lived like literally 5 or 6 doors down from me in San Rafael.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see him at Starbucks every now and then. We, talked or whatnot. And I was like, hey, would you like to be interviewed for this movie? And he's like, sure. So movie comes out. There's tons of press around it. And he doesn't see his name anywhere. And he doesn't know they didn't make the cut. He sends me a text at about 7:30 in the morning. He goes, hey, man, I'm seeing all these reports coming out and all these outlets, and I don't see my name anywhere. And I'm waking up at 7:30, like, maybe up for 10 minutes, and I'm like, oh God, this was the first like shot at me. Like nobody else has hit me up yet. And then he calls me 10 minutes later. I'm like, shit, I've got to take this call. I'm just gonna do it. I'm like, hello, Fran, this is Neil. I'm like, good morning, Neil. How are you? He goes, I don't know. You tell me.
Oh boy.
Yeah, he's like, I don't see myself. I was like, look, Neil, I'm just gonna. I respect you as a musician. You're one of the greatest guitar players alive, a great songwriter, but your story just did not fit in this movie, and that was one of the hardest. That's like firing somebody almost. I've never fired anybody before.
Also, you still have the footage. Like, theoretically,
Yeah,
there could be a hired gun too,
Well, that's what I told him. I'm like, the producers may want to do a part 2 or a series or a sequel or something, and perhaps we can use it there. And he was threatening litigation and all. I was like, for what? Because
I hear that's his style, though. So
yeah, everybody, yeah. But that's okay.
Well, I was a magazine editor for years, and I remember we had to bump people off a cover. Like, you'd get the artwork back, and you're like, it's not good.
Right.
And then you would just put someone on making those calls and telling the publicist and the talent that they didn't make the cover. Oh, it breaks your heart.
Oh.
Well, not only breaks your heart, but it's like, Jesus, am I gonna have a career after this? Because depending on how big the art, I don't know. I didn't like having that call with Neil, and then subsequently, as this thing started rolling out more, some of the players were like, why did I only get a few seconds in the movie? Or like ego started flaring. I understand, man. These artists do have big egos, and they should, that they're rock stars. But you just can't really accommodate everybody in one of these movies, unfortunately.
Well, you're serving a story. It wasn't a documentary about them. It was a documentary.
It was about the wide spectrum of what these guys do for a living.
Right.
And that's what led me to Ray Parker Jr.,
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Let's talk about that. Like, what's the genesis of that?
So through Hired Gun, I interviewed David Foster, who's a very famous record producer.
He's amazing. I love David Foster.
Yeah. So when I was interviewing David Foster, he goes, who else did you get in this? And I had like childhood friends of his were Jay Graydon, who's an A-list session guitarist and producer, Steve Lukather from Toto. They were great studio musicians before becoming Toto. And they all kind of grew up together in the LA scene. And he goes, have you interviewed Ray Parker Jr.? I'm like, the Ghostbuster guy? And he got pissed at me. He goes, no. That song defines him the least. He is the greatest rhythm guitar player on the planet Earth. Go look him up. So I interviewed Ray for Hired Gun. He's in the movie for just a couple minutes. But it wasn't until he and I went to Australia to promote Hired Gun, I would bring Ray with me because he would fill up the seats at the film festivals, right? He's a celebrity. So the flight to Australia is 16 hours. We're sitting next to each other. And I'm like, tell me, who else did you play for? He starts rattling off Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson, The Temptations, The Four Tops.
Stevie Wonder.
All these people. Stevie Wonder, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, man. And I didn't know at the time who Holland Dozier Holland was, but he started telling me about Holland Dozier Holland, that they brought him in when he was like 13, 14 years old to do these sessions. But they were the songwriting and creative team behind the Supremes and the Four Tops, Temptations, a lot of the Marvin Gaye hits. And I knew then that was going to be my next film. I'm like, what a fascinating story, that everybody knows you from Ghostbusters, but probably doesn't know this. And it's true because, we've since screened the movie a few times and people are just left with their jaw on the floor. Like, I had no idea.
I knew his radio stuff. And
Yeah,
he had
radio.
hits in the 80s.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, for sure. That stuff, and then like the other woman, when he was just a solo artist. Like I was a fan of that song because I had like a fuzz guitar, sounded
yeah.
like rock. Yeah, I'm like, oh cool,
Yeah, I'm
but
on like so many 80s streams on Twitch, and I always request it and they play it.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. So when I approached Ray about it, he's like, well, nobody's ever asked to do a movie about me. I was like, well, they wouldn't because nobody knows your story. I mean, you've told me this thing a few times now. He goes, this means that my face is going to be on a 100-foot screen. I'm like, yeah. He goes, I'm in.
Well, I have to say, I am fascinated by Studio XTR,
Yeah.
and I think that's where I saw your project. And XTR, like it's just amazing. It's like this documentary studio. So you said Sony. Like, talk about like who produced it, who funded it, like how did this come to fruition?
The unique thing about my career is I've never taken studio money to make a project before. It's all been I've raised the money, and these movies are, million and a half to make each, which is pennies compared to like, I just saw Top Gun for the third time the other day, and that's
fantastic movie. Fantastic. I loved it.
Nobody loves Tom Cruise more than me. Like,
yeah. It was fantastic.
It was the greatest movie ever.
File that under something I didn't know about you.
Yeah. So, when I with Hired Gun, the way I got that financed was when I decided I was not going to work for Five Finger Death Punch anymore. I was approaching 50 years old, and I'm like, I can't be touring with Five Finger Death Punch at 51, And I'd recently seen the movie 20 Feet from Stardom, and I really got big inspiration out of that movie to do Hired Gun. And I didn't know anything about filmmaking. When I did these things for the record companies, I didn't have to worry about licensing music or licensing archival. I didn't even know what that meant, because they would just give me the material, I'd put it together, and somebody in their legal team would take care of all the paperwork, right?
Yeah.
Now, I didn't have anybody, I didn't even have a producer. I was everything on this movie going in. And I took my own sweat, money, and, cost me about $100,000, but I made a sizzle reel, and it was really good. I was proud of myself for it. I'm like, now I got to go raise the money. And I have a really good friend named Todd Polson, who's in the oil business, and he's a dear friend of mine, and just a super great person, very wealthy. And he's like, are you going to get in this movie? I was like, well, I want to get Alice Cooper. And he and I both have a love for Alice Cooper. He goes, if I give you $1 million, will I get to meet Alice Cooper? I'm like, dude, I'll introduce you to the fucking Pope. Whatever. Yes, $1 million. Yeah. Yeah. So he was like, I'm in. And it sounds like fun. Because you got to remember, this guy is from Arcadia, Oklahoma.
Does he like PR? Because Jamie and I might have some.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, understand we're like brothers. Like we're super close. Yeah, he's a dear friend of mine.
Yeah, I know his name through you. So.
Yeah. And he's just like, I'm in, man. This sounds like fun, because all I do is sit in the oil field all day and get dirty, and I've never met anybody before. So through that, he met so many cool people and just built so many relationships, and he still has today, that it's just, he's forever grateful. Yeah.
I love that you did that, because when you fundraise, it's kind of a catch-22, especially I remember when I started my company, I had a few people, private equity, who was like, oh, we might want to invest. And I asked a very good friend of mine, I said, should I do this? And she said, there's 3 things you need to know about private equity, private money. They're not your friends, they're not your friends, and they're not your friends.
Yeah. Well,
so, and if it's a passion project, I think you need to go to people who know your passion and what you're doing versus a bean counter.
Yeah, let me tell you something about that. That's really interesting you say that, because, some of these uber wealthy people, now, if you're just talking to like a capital venture firm, they don't give a shit about meeting anybody. They're just like, we want our return. We want money back.
Yep.
These people are looking for experiences. So if you can get them an experience that's unforgettable, like meeting Alice Cooper or,
or being part of what you're doing, you know,
or being a part. Oh
yeah.
man, yeah. If anybody's seen Hired Gun, you'll see that there's a jam session we did at East West Studios, which was a super famous studio here in Los Angeles, and he got to be there for all 3 days. That's something he'll never forget. You know, seeing Brad Gillis and Rudy Sarza and Kenny Aronoff and all these people jammed for 3 days. I mean, there's only a couple songs in the movie, but man, we recorded some really cool songs that we couldn't afford licensing for, but it was really cool. So yeah, so then comes the Ray Parker movie, and there's no money again, you know, and I'm raising the money, just putting my own money in. And at the time, I was living in Northern California, and he was cool enough to let me stay at his house. He lives here in Calabasas, 2 blocks away from me, actually. And he's like, you just stay here, you know, when you come down. I'm like, cool. After about a month or so, he's like, what's keeping you in Northern California? It's triple the price that it costs to live here.
Really?
All the work is here. You're coming back and forth. And I'm like, you know, you're right. There's nothing holding me back here. It was, you know, my son had already moved to New York. I wasn't with anybody, you know, I was just going back and forth. I love living there because it's beautiful, but it didn't make business sense, you know. So once I moved here, man, it turned the needle. You know, everything happened much quicker. And, you know, the funding's a little weird. I can't talk too much about it because there is an NDA, but it was another private person that is a banker.
Oh,
but he didn't give a shit about, he didn't give a shit about the return. He liked music and, you know.
And it's also that feeling that your name is on something that's going to outlive you, right? Like you're producing a piece of art that you are forever associated with. So it's the pride of doing that. And it's the legacy. And that's why I like, you know, if you have a project going to friends, family, people who you love and who you want to be part of something.
Oh, absolutely. Not only is it a legacy piece for me, like something I'll live on forever, but for Ray, especially because he's got 4 sons, a wonderful wife. And for him, this was his legacy piece.
Right.
And I got to tell you, man, he stayed out of my way completely. He let me make the movie I wanted to make. And it's weird because he's also a producer. So he's used to being in charge and making the decisions, right?
Yeah.
But he was so hands off. He didn't see the movie till we mixed this and Hired Gun both at Skywalker Ranch. And he didn't see the movie till it was in his final lock and we were mixing it, you know. And he was blown away. He's just like, holy shit, man, this is my story.
Yeah.
But you told it in a linear fashion the way it happened. I'm like, well, that was the goal, you know. And yeah, so that was his first time seeing it, man. And then, you know, now he's probably watched it 400 times because he's got but he's awesome, man. We're still great. I just talked to him 2 days ago.
Yeah, you know, he's a great sport, man. He's, you know, he wants to win.
He is the best, you know, and he doesn't have to do this. You know, he's wealthy beyond anybody can imagine. But, you know, so we raised the money that way. And then, the next thing you know, I hit up Sony Pictures. I was like, hey, I need to license some Ghostbusters footage from the movie. And that's a very hard property to get. And I also wanted to interview Ivan Reitman, you know, who called Ray to do the song. And he said yes. I'm like, oh my God, I get to interview Ivan. You know, growing up, Stripes was one of my favorite movies. You know, he directed that, and I'm like, I'm going to talk to him about Stripe. Yeah. So I went to the Sony lot. You know, actually, if anybody's ever been to the Sony lot, it's just movie studios, different things.
Culver City, right?
Yeah. Okay. Sound stages, but there's a building there with the Ghostbuster emblems called Ghost Corp. So Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd own Ghostbusters. In essence, so that's their headquarters for all things Ghostbusters. That's where I did the interview with Ivan Reitman, and he had since just passed not too long ago. But he was so cool. And then he's like, "Do you think that I could have a meeting with you and Ray? I want to talk to you about something." I'm like, "Sure, of course." What am I going to say no to a meeting with Ivan Reitman and his team? So we go to the meeting. Ivan's not there, but a bunch of the other Sony heads are, and they had yet to announce the green light of Ghostbusters Afterlife. And we were like some of the first outsiders to know about it. Like we want to be tight with your project because we think that we could benefit from it and vice versa. I'm like, cool. So when the movie was done, man, there were we took a few meetings with people. I think we got offers from Hulu, Gravitas, and then Sony Pictures came in and just swung hard, and
I love it.
it just made perfect sense because it was the home of Ghostbusters,
Mm.
home of Ray's Publishing, and it just made perfect sense. And they came in and gave us a tremendous offer, and we took it, and they ran with it. They released it the day before Ghostbusters Day and really promoted the hell out of it, and it did well. And then that same evening, we went to the president of Kodak's Motion Pictures home, and he did a private screening. Ray was there, did a little performance. A lot of the guys from Hired Gun, the actor like Giovanni Ribisi was there. I'm a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
Barzo, Kenny Aronoff was there. Herman Lee from Dragon Force. I think you know him, Jay.
Herman.
Yeah. So it was packed. There's probably 50, 60 people there. We just did a little private screening, some food, and had a great time.
Well, when you said licensing, I kind of got PTSD because I remember in one of my last jobs, we had to, we were doing a sizzle reel, and we had to license a Chris Brown song.
Oh God.
And I was in television, so this was new. And I learned that you have to get 3 parties to agree. It was like the publisher, the singer, and the writer.
Yes.
They never agree.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. So I wound up hiring this company called Music Bridge.
Okay.
And I forgot the guy's name, and he does everything for you.
Yep.
But getting 3 people to agree on terms and
try 12 or 15 people that write on a Pink song, and you're trying to.
Oh God, right.
So yeah, the way that I deal with it is I have the best music supervisor in the world. Her name is Julie Glaze Houlihan, and without her, I don't make movies. Period.
Right.
Not music documentaries anyway.
Mm-hmm.
She's a genius, and she walked me through it with baby steps, man. Because I was freaked out when she told me some of these numbers when I was doing Hired Gun. I'm like, I'm never gonna get this movie made. Jesus Christ, what?
Yep.
So with Ray's movie, it was even trickier because Ray played with Stevie Wonder, and I'm like, and we interviewed Stevie Wonder, and he's sitting there talking about all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, so you played on, we talked about Superstition, so we licensed Superstition, and Stevie was so cool, man. He made it so easy for us. But then when I interviewed Stevie, he talks about Ray writing this guitar lick in a song called Maybe Your Baby. And I was like, well, how do we not put this in there? Because it's such a great story, and the song is ridiculous. And Julie's like, you want me to go back to Stevie Wonder and ask for this insane deal? Because she got it to me at a very fair rate. And that was all due to Stevie and his relationship with Ray. He cleared it. Like the next day, done. Whatever you need, The same things with the Rolling Stones footage. There's I don't know if it's a music documentary they're going to put out called The Cocksucker Blues. It was the 1972 Rolling Stones concert with Stevie Wonder and the Stones, and it was the last night of the tour at Madison Square Garden. And this is 8mm footage that's never been licensed before. And you see Ray Parker Jr., 17, 18 years old, his big afro, all skinny with his guitar, jamming with the Rolling Stones and Stevie Wonder at Madison Square Garden. And they got me the footage. They tell me we should never show you this, but you just have to see this. So I'm watching it. I'm like, I need 15 seconds of this. They're like, good, it's not going to happen. I was like, offer them this amount of money. It was an obscene amount of money. Yep. They're like, let me go ask them, because Keith and Mick and the copyright holder who shot the footage own the master to it, and they all 3 have to, and they've never done it before. And I told them the amount of money, and they came back to me a couple days later. I was like, well, they won't accept that amount of money. They'll accept this, which was $30,000 cheaper. So we got to license the footage. I couldn't even believe it, and they couldn't believe it either. The archive house.
Like, well, I think it's because of Ray's goodwill that he's managed to spread, over the years of his career.
Yeah, look, I interviewed all these people for Ray, and I was trying to get some shit on him, like dirt. There is none. He is the cleanest dude in the world, man. Nobody's got a bad thing to say about him.
My favorite licensing story, and I'll be quick, it's complete opposite of rock and roll.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine, Jim Colucci, wrote a book a fan book about the Golden Girls. Remember the 80s TV
Oh,
show?
of course, yeah.
And it needed photos. And the publisher's like, okay, we got to get these photos, but Disney owns them because it was touched.
Oh, no.
Yikes.
So Disney said, no,
Yeah.
we're not giving you the rights. And the publisher said, well, we're not publishing it without photos. So Jim came to me because I was working in television, and I enlisted a circle, and we contacted everybody. And it just so happened this one woman named Xenia Muka, she was the head of PR for all of Disney. She gets the email. She's next to Bob Iger.
Oh,
What
my
do you
God.
think? Let's do it. Done.
Done. Unbelievable.
It just got to one person. It's like, sure.
That is wild. That's all it takes, man. Is
Yeah.
just having the relationship. And that's, I think, what Julie Glaze-Houlihan, the music supervisor, has, is these deep relationships
Yep.
with people. Otherwise, yeah, Ray helped a little bit, but man, all those songs in Hired Gun, and it's a relationship with the artist. So, like for Hired Gun, I wanted to license "Wanted Dead or Alive" by Bon Jovi, and Bon Jovi is notorious for not licensing stuff either. And Julie again was like, I don't know, I don't think this is going to happen, but I'll gladly ask. She sends the request in along with the clip that we want to use it for. And the next thing I know, a couple days later, I get a text message from Phil X, who's the guitar player that we're featuring in a Hired Gun. He goes, "Hey man, just want to let you know that John hit me up this morning and asked if he should license the song to you." And I told him absolutely, and he loves the concept. Yeah, so he's going to do it.
Wow.
So it was great.
Well,
Well,
one more, and I wasn't involved in this, but you guys will both find this hysterical. Remember the movie Say Anything? John
Yep.
Cusack and
Yep.
In Your Eyes, Peter Gabriel.
Yes.
They asked him if they could use that song. They sent it to him, never heard anything, and they checked again. They actually sent him a porno. They didn't send him the movie.
God.
Oh my.
Someone slipped it up.
Oh no.
But yeah, be careful what you send.
Yeah.
I also think in music, like, you've established this reputation with all of the bands in rock, and word spreads. Everybody knows who everyone likes and doesn't like in this world. It's not
Right.
so big,
So small. It really is. Like, I think Zach, my son's saying this now, even within the movie industry. It's like, oh, this person, this person. I was like, man, it's a really small community.
Very small.
It just has tentacles, and everybody kind of knows who
And
everybody
they all
is.
talk. So if they love you, like, you have a very wide fan club. But if you screw up, or if you screw somebody, it's a small world.
Yeah.
People talk.
Yeah. Well, look, for anybody that was in Hired Gun, that didn't get in there. I didn't do it on purpose.
Right.
It's
But I
just
think
a
everyone knows that knows you at all. I mean, and like, you have that kind of reputation. People know what kind of guy you are. So, what are you working on? Can you talk about anything?
Oh, of course. Yeah. So I don't think that many people know this, but I was working on Shania Twain's documentary. I met her in Switzerland. She was at the world premiere of Ray's movie.
Wow.
Staying at the same hotel, and freaked when she saw the movie. We were having drinks at the hotel, and she was telling me her life story. I didn't know that much about it.
Oh my God. Fascinating life story.
Oh, completely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did somebody get from Timmins, Ontario to Nashville, where they don't like outsiders, and completely fucking dominate that territory?
Yep.
She kind of told me, and I'm like, shit. And then her husband kind of elbowed me, and he's like, they've been trying to do a documentary on her for years, but she's never found anybody that she thought could tell the story. But, and immediately, my partners were there like, you have to talk to her. I'm like, me? They're like, yes, we're having a dinner with her tomorrow night at this restaurant. We're planting you right next to her, and you're going to ask her to do this. I'm like, fuck, okay, the pressure's on,
Right.
And it's like, I can't describe to you the feeling of what it was like sitting next to her and having to pose this question just out of the blue. I didn't know if I was going to shit or throw up. I was just a nervous wreck.
Oh,
And she's sitting there, and we're talking about our kids or whatever, and then there was just this awkward silence, and I just looked at her. I'm like, if you ever decide to do a definitive life story, I would be completely honored, and I would do it with respect and reverence because I know, your story is very deep. But I would love to take a shot at that. She goes, I'm interested. Let's have
So
a
how do
discussion.
you get them to that point where they give up control of it and they just trust in your hand? How do you get there?
Well, that herein where lies the problem. Why I'm not doing that show anymore. She wanted Final Cut.
All right, right.
Yeah, and that really poses a problem for a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I tried really, really hard. It wasn't just her. There's the management and everything else. And just couldn't cross that bridge, so I bowed out after about 6 months. I mean, we actually went and filmed some stuff. We interviewed her in her residence in the Bahamas. She has a place in Nassau, and spent a couple of weeks there and got some wonderful stuff. Started cutting together, and the story was just developing. Man, it was the easiest thing I've ever done. She's so great on camera, a wonderful storyteller, and has a rich story. But you've got to, as a director, you kind of have to have everything at your disposal.
Oh yeah, well, I was an editor, and we would do we would bring celebrities around the world, and anytime you offered final approval, you're screwed because they strip everything out, all the interesting parts, and they just want like a glossy ad about themselves.
well,
And everything that makes it interesting, they take out.
well, I also think, if you say something, if something comes out of your mouth in front of a camera, you've got to be okay with that being used.
Exactly.
Of course.
And
again, we built a trust factor because, my God, I flew to New York to go pick up Zach. This was in January, to move to California to start working on this project. He was going to be the assistant editor, and he did. He worked on it for 6 months. But we drove across country, and Shania has a place in Vegas. She has a residency there. And she called me and was like, hey, where are you guys at? I'm like, well, we're about to hit New Mexico, I think, or whatever. She goes, why don't you guys come over tomorrow and, hang out? We'll cook out and eat or whatever and just hang. I'm like, okay. So we went over there, spent the whole day just talking. She got to know Zach, and it was wonderful. Went home 3 days later. Can you guys come back? Let's really get on this. I'm like, sure. Drove back with my team of story producers and everything else and got going. But, it's sad because I know what we have in the can, and I know what this thing could have been. And it's a shame it'll never see the light of day. Not from me. But with those, sort of sometimes blessings in disguise. Because I was at dinner with a girlfriend, and I got in my car, and I was waiting on it to warm up, and I was checking my emails, and there was an email from a guy I'd never heard of before called Ben Feigen. And it starts off, he goes, hey, Fran, my name is Ben. I'm a huge fan of Hired Gun. I've probably seen it a dozen times with my wife. We should talk. And he put his cell number down, and his signature was Ben Feigen, executive producer of Schitt's Creek. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. So I was like, well, let me do some real. Let me make sure this is bullshit. And I looked at it was him, and he won the producer of the year, from the Guild. And it was him. Yeah. So I sent him a text message. I don't want to seem like overly like, yo, dude, thank you. Like right away. So I'll wait until the next morning at about 9 or 10. I'm like, hey, Ben, thank you for the kind words. Let's chat sometime. And within 10 seconds, you want to have breakfast this morning? I'm like, yes, I do. So that breakfast turned into a 7-hour meeting.
wow.
That led to a project I'm doing now called First Call, which a lot of people are probably trying to associate with Hired Gun, but it's more of the higher, and not to take away anything from the Hired Gun camp, but these are musicians that play with like Lady Gaga, Rihanna, Jay-Z, The Weeknd, that level. And it's something new for me too, and I'm starting to get an appreciation for that kind of music because I'm a metalhead,
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Doing Ray's move. The cool thing is every one of these musicians has an interesting story, like the bass player for Lady Gaga, Johnny Good with 3 O's, right? Good, was a cop in Pittsburgh. And yeah, his first day on the job, he saw somebody get shot in the chest, and that was enough for him. You know, he's 21 years old. He's like, I'm out. You know, and picked up a bass and self-taught himself, moved to LA, was homeless, sleeping in a car. And he literally gets a knock on the window because his name's been circulating around how badass he is of a player. And it was a guitar player for Lady Gaga. I was like, hey, man, Gaga's looking for a bass player. I've already seen your tapes. You don't have to audition. Do you want the gig? Wow. Yes. He goes, we'll get to the studio tomorrow because day after tomorrow, we're flying to do the Super Bowl. That was his first gig, the Super Bowl. Yeah, so, you know, we interviewed 7 or 8 musicians, you know, for the first pilot that the Schitt's Creek guys involved in. And the stories are just mind-boggling. I think the audience, this is going to be a docu-series.
I love it.
Yeah, and then another film I'm working on is kind of on the history of the harmonica and how it birthed the blues.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, how blues is the DNA of all modern music we hear today. And it's really cool seeing it in linear fashion laid out. And the proof being there in that timeline, you know, so it's really fascinating. And then a non-music show I'm working on is called Message in the Bottle, and it's about these great vintners and winemakers around the world. We've interviewed people like, you know, Carlo Mondavi from the Mondavi.
Wow.
Yeah, and all this stuff. So if you think about these guys, and it's about the story, right?
Right.
There's
you have to
a great story
for wine. I have to give you this tip.
Yeah.
There is a place called Castiglione del Bosco.
Okay.
And Montepulciano or something. And it is the Ferragamo family bought it. And it's this abandoned village from World War II. They restored it. And then they grow Brunello around it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, you know, this project is brought to me, and I'm a partner in it as well.
Nice.
But you know, when you think about it, wine is really the only consumable form of history.
Yes, absolutely.
You can intake, right? And there's a message in every one of these bottles, and that's what we're telling is like what went into this vintage. You know, the family history, the region it was grown in.
That's
what
fascinating.
Kind of cool, yeah, it's really neat.
I love this.
Do you think you'll ever do anything like scripted fiction, like some? Yeah.
I want to really bad.
Because I think you would give it a great perspective.
Yeah, you know, I'm ambitious to do that. You know, I think that maybe I have 1 or 2 more of these type of films before I'm ready to leap into there. Yeah. I don't want to stand in my own way and think that, you know, I can do something like that. But I for sure foresee myself making a scripted show.
Nice.
Real life is too interesting, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, everything real life is so much more interesting.
It really is. And you know what? The most fulfilling thing to me as a filmmaker is when I go screen my movies around the planet. And hang on, something just get a purse here. And seeing the reactions that you'd hope to see in every segment in every different part of the world. You know, people laughing, cheering, crying, applauding. Yeah. And there's nothing more fulfilling, you know, to me. Because I love to go to the movies and cry. And I cried 30 times in Top Gun and laughed and cheered. And
I now have to see this because of you.
It's fantastic. I was so pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. There's a blues documentary I want to recommend to you, Life and Larry Brown. And I know the people that made it, so I'll send it to you.
Please do.
Yeah. I like meet all these documentary people now that I know you. I think like, you know, I have a fitness friend.
Right now?
Yeah,
what?
I think, Tribeca's going on
right now, right?
Yeah.
One of our viewers, Music by Chance, says Hired Gun was amazing, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
If you like that, make sure you watch the Ray Parker Jr. documentary. It's equally as good.
It's called Who's Gonna Call, and it's available. Where's it available now?
It's available on any streaming service you can find, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, anywhere. And you can purchase it as well.
Yeah,
I have to say, you are incredibly talented.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Jamie told me all about you, and I kind of knew about you from the Ray project, but
Okay.
the way you can find stories through shooting and editing is such a rare talent.
Oh, well,
So
thank
please
you.
keep making, please keep doing this.
That's very lovely of you to say that. That means a lot. Yeah, that's the heartbeat of any documentary, right? It's finding the story, exposing something that people don't know about, and
Exactly.
in that journey. So
I am the
that's what
president of your fan club there, Fran.
well, I'm the president of you,
I'm
man.
vice president.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. Well, look, I'm just going to say it right now. Without Jamie Roberts and a couple other people, I'm not here today doing this. That is for sure, man. You guys really kicked me in the ass and like steered me in the right direction and gave me the access I needed to get this kind of stuff done.
Well,
So
not everybody gets the
Ugh.
reaction from artists like you do.
Yep.
I mean, I remember I wanted to send you to Europe with Three Doors Down.
I could get my fucking passport in time. Remember?
They were so bummed out.
I know. I was bummed out.
Yeah.
And you want to know something funny? The town that they went to, Rota, Spain, is where I was born. My birthplace.
Right,
Oh my
right.
God.
I
Yep.
didn't know that about you.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
I get to meet this famous girlfriend when I come to LA. Yes.
Yeah, she's
Because,
awesome. Man.
You know, I haven't met her yet. So, and
No, she's
I've
great.
told the many stories. I told Jeremy before you came on about how I used to throw my dog on top of you,
Oh,
and,
amazing. Oh.
and
She's
how,
still alive and kicking, right? She's around.
Yeah, she is. She's right down there.
Yeah.
And how we went to the bubble show because I thought Zach was really a little kid and he wasn't.
Oh, my God. That was hysterical.
And we almost got thrown out of the theater.
Our favorite lobster. Is that place still open? The place that sells the lobster claws?
Yeah. Venero's.
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
Fran and Nickelback. Anytime either Fran or Nickelback are in town, I have to go to Venero's and get them.
Very good.
So,
I still talk to Mike Kroger. He lives not too far from me here in LA now. We meet up every now and then. I saw his son's band play, and he came to a private screening of Who You're Gonna Call right before the pandemic hit. The next day, they shut down all the theaters in LA,
wow.
And I got to tell you, man, I don't know why anybody gives so much shit to Nickelback because they're the coolest, most generous, wonderful group of guys you'd ever want to be around. I don't get the hate.
Me
I
either.
don't understand it. Yeah.
Me either. And I do remember when we were on the set of the photograph video shoot and how we were in some off-road vehicle and I was sliding around in the back seat with you and Donnie.
We were in like Drum Helen looking for dinosaur bones, and I bought a vertebrae somewhere.
We went to Alberta. There were like, it was like the background, Jeremy, on the Windows computers, just grass. Like nothing else.
By the way, can I get some credit? Because out of all three of you, I have the best video.
You do.
Yeah.
It looks great. Do you have a light on you? Like a ring
I
light?
do, and I had a friend who's a lighting director who came and got me this crazy camera.
Nice.
And so I got to take something because
I'm just here on my MacBook Pro in the family room. So
if that light was on, it would have been like the sun. So I'm taking what I got.
Are you in Queens?
What?
You're in Queens now, right?
Yeah. I live right near Sharon.
Okay.
Yeah. And oh goodness, it's been an hour already. I can't even believe it. Well, thank you
Thank
you so much. This was so great.
Oh man.
We'll have you back for your next project.
Definitely.
Oh, 100%. I'll have 3 more to tell you about before the end of the year.
Amazing.
Yeah, this is great.
I'm going to get to actually see you live and in person soon. And I'm
We're
very
gonna go to
excited.
House of Pies, goddammit.
House of Pies in LA. That is it, man. Well, thank you so much, Fran. Thank you so much. Jeremy.
Jeremy, thanks. Nice to meet you, man.
Absolutely.
Jamie, I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Very good.
And guys, we are gonna we are going to raid. We're going to raid a DJ set right now, and I will see you all next week. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Hmm.